All right, we are off and running. It is the New York Giants squad show. My name is Jay Berman. It's Dart's first start on the road. We will break it down.
I'm Patricia Train. I'm Locked On Giants, and can the Giants win back-to-back games for the first time since 2023?
I'm Mark Collins, two-time Super Bowl champion. Was that the Giants of 2 weeks ago or the Giants of now?
Let's go, Big Blue. It's the New York Giants squad. Everything New York Giants every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the G-Men. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. The Giants Squad Show starts now.
All right, it's that time. It's the New York Giants squad show. For what it's worth, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Patricia, it's Mark, it's Jay. And we are doing today's show after a win, which, to be honest, is a little bit surprising, but we're past the Chargers now. Big picture, it's the leadoff. It's Patricia. Your thoughts heading into a game after a win?
I'm not used to this. I hate to say it. I could get used to this. I mean, definitely. I mean, look, the Giants were not favored in that game. They were facing a Los Angeles Chargers team that was undefeated, that, have some very good players, and the Giants got it done. The defense played very well. For the first time, I think we can honestly say that the back end supported the front end, the pass rush. We could say on offense, the rookie quarterback, Jaxson Dart, didn't look overwhelmed or with his head spinning, made some really solid decisions. And just the running game, I thought was a big, big addition. The Giants went more with the running game in that win, which I think helped ease in the Jaxson Dart era. So overall, a successful effort by the Giants. And I'm just glad for the Giant fans that there was a win.
Mark?
Well, as I said earlier last week, that the Giants will win. And the reason I said that was because that offense that the Giants run is very similar to what they do at Ole Miss. And you can't run that offense with a quarterback who's basically a pocket passer because of his age. He's a drop back passer, throw the high ball, and it's an RPO offense. That RPO with Jaxson Dart in there, it's the other element of him running the ball, keep the ball and running it, which you don't have that with Wilson. But overall, I agree, Patricia. I was at the game, and you can feel the optimism from the fans. It was kind of like, okay, what do we expect? What are we going to do? What's going to happen? Kind of scary a little bit, but exciting in the end. Great game. The defense played, I thought, very, very well. And I said before last week, the back end's got to be married to the front end of that pass rush. And those guys on the back end covered very well. The pass rush obviously was there, 12 carries, a couple of sacks. It was a beautiful game.
Yeah, and obviously this leads us to Dart, who is going to get tested because it's his first road test. Obviously, he was tested last week in his first home game, but now it's a road test. The Saints, despite the fact that they're 0-4, Patricia, that's never an easy place to play. So things are going to be a little bit different this week for Dart.
Yeah, I call it the House of Horrors down there in New Orleans. Every time the Giants go down there, something funky happens that you just don't have on your bingo card. But, the biggest thing for Jaxson Dart and the Giants offense is going to be the noise. That dome, I've been in that dome several times for a game. You can't hear yourself think. I mean, I've actually sat there with earplugs in that are supposed to be noise canceling. I might as well just not put them in there, so that's going to be a big thing. The noise can be very deafening. Now, I think the way the Giants can curtail that, if you will, strike first, get on the board first, take that crowd out of the game and keep that loud roar to maybe a soft hum.
Mark, how difficult is it to play with a crowd like that on the road?
It's difficult, but when you focus on what you got to get done, you can do it. I just think, listen, the Saints are 0-4. Are they going to sell that place out? I don't know. I mean, some fans may have checked out already. I know Kellen Moore's a good coach, and he's not on the table on the hot seat, but it's difficult to play if that team was 4-0, the crowd's going to be loud. But 0-4, how enthusiastic will they be? And I agree, Patricia, the Giants have to strike first just to keep the crowd out of it. And that's usually how you get it done.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do it every week. We talk about taking or at least deferring the opening kickoff, and we sort of dissect this every single week, which is the best plan of attack. Now, we've talked about how teams usually like to take the ball in the second half. But again, I ask Patricia, maybe take the ball, another long drive, maybe silence that crowd a bit.
Well, there's two schools of thoughts. I mean, that would kind of make sense. But then if you're saying, okay, we're going to defer, now you're saying to the defense, okay, I've got confidence in you guys. Go out there, get a stop, get us the ball back as soon as possible. So I can see both sides of the argument. I don't know if I necessarily have a problem with them deferring all the time. But, so long as the defense shows up and gets done what they need to get done. So I know the Saints have an injury on the offensive line. Cesar Ruiz is not going to be in there. They're going to play Simpkins, who was really good last week. But they've got to take advantage of that. They've got to rattle Spencer Rattler, get to him, and give him something to think about if they do, decide to defer on the opening kickoff.
Yeah, interesting plan of attack, Mark. We've discussed this before, as I said. Your thoughts on getting a quick start, especially with a rookie quarterback?
Well, that's what you want. But, whether you take the ball first or defer, to me, it's not a big deal. I really don't give a damn. I'm a defensive guy. You put us on the field, we put out the fire, we're ready to go. I think with this team now, with Jaxson Dart in, and I saw it when I was at the stadium last week, you can see them feed off each other. You can really see it. When the defense was making stops, interceptions, the offense fed off of that. So you can, and vice versa. So and that's something you got to build on. You got to build to get to the highest level. But if the Giants take the ball and defer, not a big deal. I think whether the offense gets and drives for a score, which they did last week, the defense fed off of that, or the defense goes first and get a 3 and out, the offense will feed off that. So either way works with me.
We've been in a shootout. Obviously, the loss to Dallas, so tremendous stats from Russell Wilson in that game. Now, to be fair, Dart stats were not great last week, but they won. So my question is, or at least my thought is, Patricia, is that it feels like a lower scoring game, a defensive battle might favor the Giants as opposed to a shootout.
I would think so at this stage of the game. But that being said, as long as Jaxson Dart is doing what he did last week, and what he did last week very well, he made good decisions. He took care of the ball. So even if they do get into a shootout, if the defenses break down, for example, as long as you're doing that and you're giving your team a chance, they might be able to pull it off. But, I think, a shootout might be a little bit too much. But then again, nothing has proven to be too much for Jaxson Dart. He's very level-headed, very confident. He's locked into what he needs to do. So I don't know that I would be that worried about it if that situation were to arise.
Mark?
I agree. I don't see. Maybe I'm not seeing the bigger picture. I think I know the bigger picture. I don't see Spencer Rattler as a major QB in the NFL, but that's me. I don't see him. Never seen him. He's a backup. Whatever. But to me, I like Dart going into this game than Spencer Rattler. Though he has weapons down in New Orleans, he hasn't really showed nothing since he's been in the league because he hasn't really done anything. So I think momentum-wise, give me Jaxson any day of the week over Rattler and the Saints. And I'm saying it because, you see the tremendous upside with the Giants right now compared to the Saints, and knowing some people down there, some people are ready to check out at 0-4.
Rightfully so. One of 3 winless teams. The Jets and Titans are also 0-4. Patricia brought it up, and I'm glad she did, and that's Cam Skadoo, the running game. For Skadoo, 5th among all NFL rookies in yards from scrimmage. So again, and I have to come clean on this. I didn't think he was a 1. He was forced into the 1 duties, Patricia, and it looks like he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, he's breaking tackles, forcing missed tackles. The yards after contact has been up there, which is something that's been missing really since Saquon Barkley. The Giants' running game finally has the start of an identity. You know, that was missing ever since Saquon left. And I'm not saying, you know, Cam Skadoo is the second coming of Saquon, because there's only one Saquon. But the Giants' running game was kind of an afterthought for so long. And they leaned on that running game last week against the Chargers. And it was a little unbalanced, more in favor of the running game than the passing game, which I understand why. But moving forward, considering that Brian Daboll runs an offense that tends to consider the running game as an afterthought, how good is it going to be for the Giants now if that running game continues to be productive the way that they have with Skadoo and Devin Singletary, and then eventually with Tracy coming back? I mean, it's going to give them a two-pronged attack. Good luck trying to figure out how to stop the offense now if you have that two-pronged attack.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, the reason that the running game was good last week was because Jaxson Dart was in there. Because he's that running quarterback. He's the other option of the RPO, run, pass option. So he could give it to the running backs or keep it around the corner, around the boot. So that opens it up. That's the key. And he couldn't do that with Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson is not a running quarterback. He's a pass rusher, a drop back passer. So as long as they can keep that element of the quarterback keeping the ball, the running game should open up and stay open for a while.
It better, because we have no neighbors now, and it's life without neighbors. We're pressing on without them. Slayton and Wandale are there. My question is, what happens to Jalen Hyatt, who, believe it or not, played way more than I thought that he did, just because they needed him at that point, but he had 0 targets. So without focusing too much on Hyatt, he needs to step up, Patricia.
Yeah, he does. And, you know, look, I went back and I did this for the crossover show with Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints. You look at how Jalen Hyatt has been deployed versus how Malik Nabers has been deployed. Let's get one thing straight. They're not going to be deployed the same way. Malik Nabers has been deployed on the back end or the back, the open field, the high red, the mid red, the low red. He's all over the field. Jalen Hyatt has not been deployed in his limited snaps in that capacity. I think he's primarily been open field, and I think a little bit in the high red. So, you know, Jalen Hyatt, the big thing with him, works hard. He's a great kid. I think my listeners know that I'm a big, that I like him and I'm a fan of his. But he's got to do a little bit better job tracking that ball. I'd like to see him be a little bit more physical, because when it comes to contested catches, I mean, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to win it. So this is a golden opportunity for him to step up. He's faced adversity before. He spoke about it yesterday in the locker room, how he was benched at Tennessee, and then he came back and, had a big season and whatnot. This is what he needs to reach in deep down into that experience and go out there and show the coaches who have kind of kept them on the back burner, say, hey, I can be a part of this offense.
Mark, let me just ask you this. You can't teach speed. We know that. And he's got it. Why can't he use it effectively, if at all?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer. Some questions just don't have an answer to. I mean, just because you're fast don't mean you can catch. And just because you can catch don't mean you're fast. Sometimes this has got to work hand in hand. I mean, and most of the time it's mental. You got to want to do it. You got to take on the onus of being a productive professional player. And some people, honestly, I've seen it. Some people don't want to be the alpha guy, person, I should say. Some want to land, second, third, and just do their job and go home. Some people can't handle being the main person. Sometimes it's thrust upon you, and you got to take advantage of it. This is his opportunity right now to do that, if he accepts that challenge.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. We're going to do the defense next. For now, we have a quick break. And again, as I said, we'll focus in on the defense coming up. All righty. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Well, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, we are back, and we are set to focus in on the defense, and obviously they played super well last week. Mark, 2 interceptions, 12 quarterback hits versus the Chargers. We talked about last week if Shane Bowen was on the hot seat. I believe at least for a couple of weeks, Mark, he saved his job.
Well, yeah, I mean, great defensive play calling. The defense played great. Is he on the hot seat? I mean, okay, you play golf, right? And you marvel when you get a birdie. You're so happy you get that birdie, and then the next hole you get like a double bogey or a triple bogey. So it's based on your next game. So this is Shane's next game is against the Saints. How do they do this week? But overall, seeing the guys play that good, I'm not saying they played great, which birdie, it was very, very good. But man, it was a beautiful thing to watch. Just watch the hustle, the go for this, just going for the big plays. It's just making shit happen. I like that. It was fun. So from a defensive perspective.
Yeah, Patricia, it was to be honest, from my perspective, it was a little bit surprising. I didn't think they'd play as well as they did, but they did. So we press on.
Yeah, I mean, the pass rush came as advertised. Now, the one thing that I didn't like, the run defense, still giving up big chunk plays. And in watching back the film, especially those big runs, linebackers are not getting off their blocks. They're not filling holes. Guys up front, other than Dexter Lawrence, are not taking advantage of the one-on-one matchups. That still needs to be cleaned up. You cannot be having 54-yard touchdown runs. That being said, the pass rush was phenomenal. The edge play, again, against the run, a little shaky, but overall good. The back end of the defense, they covered well. And it was a case, like Mark said earlier, where the front end and the back end married each other and they worked in unison.
Perfect segue into Dex, who, of course, was pretty good last week. He wasn't the first couple of weeks, but I'm assuming now, hopefully, knock on wood, Mark, that Dex is back.
Well, yeah, back to my golf analogy. You get a birdie up. But, yeah, he played great. He played well. I thought he was going to score a touchdown. But, we talked about it last week, guys, about him being in shape, football shape. I mean, it was week 3, week 4. You should be in shape. He looked good. I know they rotated him out quite a bit to get so he could rest. But overall, he looks pretty solid to me.
Yeah, Patricia, you've been on that from the beginning, and rightfully so. We all agree with you. It didn't seem like Dex was in game shape, but we've played a month now. That's 4 games. So he should be good to go, no?
Yeah, I mean, and here's the funny part. Dexter was sick, and he's missed the last couple of practice, including today, with an illness. So Dexter was just starting to get sick at when that game was played, and he just reached deep inside of himself to go out there and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to focus on the task at hand. So kudos to Dexter, because a lot of people, when they don't feel well, I know they don't necessarily give their best, and Dexter brought it, and I tip my cap to him.
Yeah, the defense was really good. And again, for what it's worth, I was a little bit surprised. But that being said, we also focused in on the secondary earlier as well. Phillips and Banks were noticeable. They are every week. Mark, let's start with Drew Phillips, who, again, in the middle of so many plays.
I said it before. I love how he plays.
Yeah.
He just gets it done. big interception, couple of tackles, right place at the right time. Banks played well. He played well. All of them, for some, I like watching the secondary and the pass rush. That's what I do. But man, they look good. They look like they knew exactly what they were doing. And that sounds funny, but it's not, because the first 3 games, they looked like crap. They looked lost. And we were blaming the defensive coordinator not putting them in the right positions or them not knowing what to do, all that stuff. But this game against the Chargers, they looked pretty uniformed and knew what they were doing.
Yeah, Patricia, the secondary was much improved. And again, for what it's worth, it comes up perhaps when we didn't expect it. So I think that makes it even more special.
Yeah, for sure. And Mark, I think you'll be the first one to admit that when the front 7 does its job and puts pressure on the quarterback and gets that ball out quickly to where you don't have to cover a guy for multiple 5 seconds, which is an eternity, that makes things a lot easier for the back end of the defense. And that's what we saw this week from the Giants.
I don't know much about the Saints offense, Mark, but what do you think the Giants defense plan of attack coming in? Now, obviously they have some solid receivers.
Yeah.
Rattler's okay. I thought there was a chance that Shuck would play, but looks like Rattler's going to start. The Giants defensive thoughts, I guess, or perspective coming in against the Saints team that is not great offensively.
Just basic coverages. You're not going to fool too many quarterbacks in this league, even though it's Spencer Rattler. You're not going to fool him. He's been around and knowing defense, what to look for. But as far as the Giants, what they do defensively, who do you take away? Kamara's going to be there. You got to see who's going to be there. But overall, just play your basic defense. See what they're trying to do to you. Once you figure that out, after the first 2 drives, you go to the board and just make adjustments. But it's hard to say because I don't even know what the Saints are going to do. And I watched a few of their games, but they're not really a quarterback-driven team. Like you play against, let's say, the Chargers. You play against Mahomes. Joe Burrow, Allen. You know what you're getting. With the Saints, it's kind of hard because you don't know what their strong points are, their weak points are. So you got to come in with a base defense and then adjust as you go.
Patricia, your thoughts on the defense? Whatever their game plan is, I would expect it to be similar to the Chargers game, despite the fact that the Chargers and Saints are very different.
Yeah, I think for the Giants on defense, the number one thing, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, stop the run. Kamara and Miller, 2 very good running backs. Now, I checked out True Media, and here's an interesting stat for you. I call this the money down. Teams against the New York Giants run defense are averaging 5.4 yards on first down when they rush the ball. You cannot have that. You cannot give a team 2nd and short, 3rd and short. You've got to stop the run on first down. You've got to create those long situations. Give your pass rush an opportunity to get in there and do some damage. Force Spencer Rattler into making mistakes, because when Rattler has been forced into mistakes, or I should say when he's been rushed, he's like 0 for 4, I believe, when he has been pressured and on blitzes. So that's what the Giants have got to do. They've got to stop that run. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Give a team an opportunity to do whatever they want, and they're going to hurt you.
They held Justin Herbert down pretty good. Now, obviously, as Patricia said, the run defense was no good. But that being said, I have to assume, Mark, that if they think they can get to Rattler, they'll rattle him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of quarterbacks feel that way, especially against Spencer Rattler. But once again, I agree with Patricia. If you can't stop the run, that pass rush is null and void. It doesn't matter because you give them up 5-6 yards on first down. That's not good. So the Giants got to show up that run stop game.
Yeah, and as we said, 2 interceptions, 12 quarterback hits versus the Chargers, and I think we all agree for a couple of days, at least a couple of weeks, that Shane Bowen is probably safe. Let's talk about the threats from the Saints for a few minutes now. Alvin Kamara, as you said, still there, older now, relatively speaking, but still a force, Patricia. So, as you said, with the struggling run defense, Despite the fact the Saints are 0-4, Kamara's still a pretty good player and dangerous.
Yeah, he definitely is. And, last week, if you look at where the Chargers were getting most of their yards, they were getting them outside the tackle box. The edges were not as fortified as they should have been on the Giants defense. So I would suspect that the Saints are going to maybe try and attack the Giants on the edges, see if they can't get, some of the yardage with the running game on the outside. Because look, until you can prove that you can stop it, and the Giants have been kind of, up and down, mostly down with stopping the run on the edges, then teams are going to continue to attack you. So they've got to come up with an answer and play a little bit more stout on the edges, especially against the run.
Yeah, he scares me. And I understand, Mark, that he's not as young as he was. And relatively speaking, compared to other running backs, he's old. But he's still a threat. And he seems to be the one guy that can wreck this game for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Shane Bourne will create something to stop that. We call that little stretch play, a wide 9 play. The Giants got to stop that. Yeah, and Kamara is a hell of a player, has been. But I think overall, they're going to need more than just him to win. You got to stop. You still got to stop the running game. You got to alleviate the big play, pass or run, and keep the game manageable for the offense to come in and hopefully win the game.
All right, as for the offensive receivers, Olave, Shaheed, and Cooks are pretty good. Now, to be fair, the Chiefs were without their top several receivers. They didn't score too many points. The Chargers, I think we would all say average receivers at best. Olave, Shaheed, and Cooks have all been good at certain stretches, but collectively as a unit, Patricia, I feel like it's a good matchup for Phillips and Banks and the rest of the secondary.
Yeah, and one of the things I'd like to see a little bit more of, I'd like to see them take a page out of the 1990 Giants playbook, hit the receivers coming off the line, get physical with them. Mark can attest to that. He beat the you-know-what out of Jerry Rice and Andre Reed and those guys, and look at what happened, So hit them off the line. But, look, I think the Giants, they play a lot of zone coverage. And the key, I think, with zone coverage is you got to play that tight. You cannot let guys slip between the zones and find the soft spots, because that's where they're going to get beaten. And especially if you're playing so far off and now all of a sudden a guy is in your zone and you have to scramble over, that increases the likelihood that you're going to have a missed tackle or take a poor angle, and what should technically be like a short gain turns into a massive gain.
Interesting stuff. And don't forget, folks, short week. So we have the Saints on Sunday, then the Eagles on Thursday. We'll break it all down and obviously get you set for Giants and Saints. Coming up next. All righty then, let's talk to you about game time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple of taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, we are back and we are focused now on the short week. And we talked about the Eagles next Thursday. And then, believe it or not, 2 weeks later, we get the Eagles again. But, Mark, let me ask you, knowing that you have two games in essentially 4 or 5 days, how does that influence the game plan for the first game, for the Saints game?
It doesn't. It really doesn't, because you got to play them as they come. So who's ever next, you got to go for it. That's all you worry about is the game in front of you. So the practices and stuff like that doesn't change. You got to handle what the game you got right now, which is the Saints. So after that, then the practice changes a little bit. But the best thing about it is the Giants and the Eagles play during the same division, so they know each other. So they don't have. There's no special game plan you got to put in. You know what you're getting, so you don't have to do anything but focus on the game at hand with the Saints.
Patricia, it's a difficult, however many days, 7 or 8 or 9 days total. Again, on the road, then a Thursday nighter. It's not easy.
No, it's not. And, everybody knows who listens to me that I hate the Thursday night games. I hate the night games, period. But look, they know what the schedule is since May? Yeah. So they have had time to say, okay, this is how we're going to plan, starting with the schedule release right up until the actual day before the game. I think for the most part, like Mark said, the Giants and Eagles know each other very, very well. So what worked in the past? The Eagles, a few changes here and there, but basically the same systems, the same kind of philosophies. What worked last time that the Giants can use this time around? And you're going to say nothing worked last time because the Eagles swept them and they beat them pretty good. So that's what they've got to focus on. And then they've got to say, okay, now how do we adapt what didn't work to what did work, and then how do we adapt that to what we have now on the the defense and on the offense. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but I think they plan for it because, like I said, they've known since May what it was going to be.
We'll get to predictions and feel for the game later, but I just wanted to say, because we looked at the Eagles twice in 3 weeks, including a Thursday nighter after the Sunday game, Mark, does that make the Saints game a must-win?
Oh, I think every game the Giants play is a must-win. So the Giants don't have that luxury to one, look ahead to the Eagles or bypass anybody they're playing this week based on the history of the last 7, 8, 9 years, whatever. But yeah, the Giants must win this game not because of the future games with the Eagles and everybody else, it's because of them, or because of what the situation they put themselves in over the last few years. So every win counts. Every win is good if you get it. So take advantage of the situation that presents itself and just get it done.
All right, I wrote this down. The Saints, obviously the only winless team in the NFC. Fewest points in the NFC. They've scored 66. They've allowed the second most points in the NFC, 121. So, Patricia, must win?
Every game's a must win. I mean, look, if you go 2-3 after this game, now that you've got a season, if you lose this game and now you've got the Eagles coming up twice within a 3-week span, and then I think you've got the Denver Broncos out in Denver in between those two games, you risk the season going down the tubes. So, yes, this is a must-win game for the Giants on Sunday. Every game is a must-win. But if you can get to 2-3, build up some of that momentum, build up some of that, that goodwill that, hey, this is how we win. We've done it before. We beat an undefeated Chargers team, all right? So if we could do that and we could beat a winless, Saints team. Now, you're talking two teams on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Maybe a little bit of that momentum carries over and the game against the Eagles isn't going to be a blowout. Hopefully, that goes the wrong way.
I was pretty negative, and I haven't been shy about telling you how negative I feel about the Giants, at least before last week's win. That being said, when we looked at the schedule, I think we all, especially when we got closer to the beginning of the regular season, I think we all thought that this was a game the Giants had to have because the Saints just aren't as good. But you still have to go out and do it, Mark, and that's why this week is so important.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's why you play the game. I mean, looking at the schedule, nobody had the Giants beating the Chargers, nor the Chiefs. They should be the Chiefs. But it's just how it is. You got to go out there and play the game. I know when I played, when the schedule come out, no matter how good your team is, all the players get the list, and we look at the schedule. We'll go, okay, win. That's a tough one. We'll see. We all do it. And I think I know me. I looked at the schedule, and I was going, okay, 1, 2, 3. We split here with the Eagles, or with the Washington, Dallas. Same thing. I was thinking 8, 9 wins, but that's out the window right now. Just focus on the Saints right now, and then whatever comes the Giants' way, it's got to come his way.
I look at it as a game they just absolutely have to have. I mean, because there's teams they're not going to beat, but it doesn't mean their season is trashed. They can still beat the teams they should. And as Mark said, maybe pick off one of the teams they shouldn't, Patricia.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it always goes. I mean, did anybody have on their bingo card that the Giants were going to beat the Chargers, an undefeated team? So,
Mark
except
did.
Mark.
I did.
Mark did. So I'm sorry. Mark, we give credit to Mark. But seriously, what I'm saying is that there's always going to be games that a team shouldn't win that they do, and vice versa. They should have beaten Dallas, but they didn't. We kind of, I felt they should have beaten Washington, and they didn't. I didn't think they would play the Chiefs as closely as they did until the end there, and they did. So, the team, it's interesting. I don't think this is a bad Giants team. They just haven't done what they need to do. They've hurt themselves. I think some of the play calling over the recent weeks has been a problem. I think if they finally put it all together, for me, just be competitive. Don't have blowouts. That's the one thing that I sit there and I shake my head is when they have blowouts, because I think they're better than that even if they end up losing, they should at least be able to keep it close.
All right. One guy we didn't bring up, obviously, was Brian Dable, who, if you were watching, was pretty excited after the game with Jaxson Dart. Now, I think there's a lot to that, Mark. Obviously, happy to get the win, happy to have a fresh face under center. But it seemed like at that point, to me, it seemed like when he was slamming him in the chest and grabbing him around the head and whispering in his ear, "You saved my job."
You know what? I took some different from that. When I saw that, he was saying, "That's my guy. You're my guy. That's why I brought you here. You keep doing you." It's not about his job, because he knows that all it's all intertwined when the Giants win. But seeing Dable that excited, it's like that's what I'm talking about. I saw it, I felt it. It was a beautiful thing to see that a coach does that to a player that he wanted. And I think Brian wished, maybe further down the road, it may come to fruition, but he's probably saying, "Damn it, I wish I would have did this. You could have been ready week 1.
I think a lot of people are thinking that.
Yeah, but you don't know, right, until you know. And the Giants, with all the money they have to get 2 veteran quarterbacks in and trying to get stability there and then bring the rookie quarterback in to learn, yeah, I agree with that plan. And as we all discussed earlier in the season, if that plan doesn't work, you have no choice but to put Jaxson in. And it panned out that way. Now they're 1-3. So seeing Dable do that was exciting to see. Hopefully he and the Giants and the fans get their wish to see more of this throughout the season.
Yeah, Patricia, it was an exciting moment. Obviously, we were sort of reveling in the win at the time, and then we see this, and to me, it spoke volumes.
Well, I think the other thing you got to look at as coaches are teachers, and you name me one coach or one teacher out there that doesn't want to see their pupils do well. I mean, that's, I've done a little teaching in my career, and there's nothing better than to see, your pupil rise up and deliver a strong performance. And, I think that was part of it. Obviously, the emotion of getting the first win. I don't know necessarily that I agree that it was Dable hugging him and saying, "Thank you for saving my job," because, look, we kind of saw little bits and pieces of this back in 2019 with Pat Shurmur and Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones at the time was starting to show, little flashes that he could be a good quarterback, but that didn't save Pat Shurmur. At the end of the day, it's not just one guy that's going to save him. But yeah, I think to a degree, maybe Gable felt vindicated. This is the guy I picked, and I was happy to see this guy do well because I picked him, I mentored him, I brought him along. But you got to give credit also to the kid. Dable can't take all the credit. I don't think he would either. But you got to give credit to Jaxson Dart. He prepared. He came, first one in, last one home, doing extra work after practice. You could see him working with his offensive linemen or his receivers. Just, a good first outing overall for the kid. And it just, the emotion just kind of spilled over, which was a nice thing to see.
Yeah, we haven't seen Dable that happy in a long time. Obviously, we know why. But I also think that it was unintentionally a sort of a rallying cry for the rest of the team. This is, see, we can do this. This can be done. We can win games. And I think it was raw emotion, but at the same time, it sent a pretty strong message, Mark.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, as a team, you feed off each other. You feed off special teams, offense, defense. That's what happens when you play in this game at the highest level. So I'm pretty sure that locker room talk was just that, Jay, when he said, "See, we could do this. If we all believe in the game plan and we got each other's backs, you'd be amazed what we could do collectively." So, and that's what I took from this from beating the Chargers to seeing Dable. I've seen it come. I see it coming together. Hopefully they can ride it out for the whole season. We
worry about RPO quarterbacks running and getting hurt. And we saw how tough Jaxson Dart was last week. Patricia, he's got to slide. We need to teach him how to slide because this isn't going to last very long.
Yeah, he's got to get with whoever coached Eli Manning on how to slide. So, yeah, I mean, look, I get it. This breed of quarterback, they're runners. All right. Gone are the days of the pure pocket passer. They become dinosaurs. But that being said, you don't want to see them get hurt. That was one of the biggest complaints I had about Daniel Jones. He wanted to show he was tough and he would dive in head first after a run. And I'd be like, slide, because that's how you get dinged.
Yep.
And, Jaxson Dart, he was pulled out of the game on that long run that was called back because of the penalty. Now, Jaxson Dart afterwards said, I was just tired. I ran 54 yards and then I had to run back to the huddle because, the play was wiped out and get ready. I was tired. I wasn't woozy. But still, you don't want to put that risk out there. You want to minimize it as best as you can. The way to do it is to slide, even if it means you don't get that extra down or yard or two, live to see the next down.
It's interesting because obviously he had to do far fewer slides in college. But again, we need to beat it into his head. Obviously, we understand the physical part, but the mental part of knowing when to throw it away or slide or dive, that's something that he has to work on, Mark.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and in the league, they try to protect the quarterbacks as much as possible. But if you don't take advantage of the rules that they're trying to give you to protect yourself, well, the rules that the league try to do to protect you, if you take advantage of them and you get hurt, that's on you. So he's got to learn to slide. And the long run he had, he did get dinged because I used to work on upstairs in the communications department in the NFL. They got a medical staff, and they watch strictly every play. If a player gets hurt or they feel dinged, he was in the huddle. They called down to the officials to told him to stop the game, get him out of there, because they saw something that they didn't like, and they took him off. He was a little woozy, so they took him off, put in Wilson, but Jackson came back into play. But he's got to learn to slide. These guys at this level, they're all bigger and faster in the National Football League than in the SEC. So he's got to learn that. The biggest 300-pound lineman is faster than most running back in the NFL, is faster than most running backs in the college. So he's got to learn to slide.
All right, we have one block remaining. We'll take our last break of the show, and then obviously we'll get into predictions and an interesting twist on the point spread that we'll get to coming up. All right, folks, it is time to do Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety picks and awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every single model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drive feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we are back. Final segment of the show. We talked about the spreads, and obviously we're not gamblers here, but as soon as the two finals were put on the board last week, the Saints and the Giants were favored by 1.5. I made sure to look at it right away. Well, it's now 1.5 the other way. Giants are actually getting 1.5. So, Patricia, obviously those are small numbers, but big picture in this game, how do you think it plays out?
I think the reason why the point spread swung was the Malik Neighbors injury. I mean, that, once that was confirmed, that maybe got the odds makers a little nervous, if would be my guess.
Right.
In terms of how this plays out, the Giants should beat the Saints. I mean, I don't want to say take them lightly because they're 0-4, because they are a very good football team. But they haven't quite found their footing yet. And usually around 4 weeks into the season, you get a sense of what a team is all about. The Saints, I think, are still trying to find their footing. What is their identity? They've got a new coaching staff. Now, what works in the Saints' favor a little bit, Kellen Moore came over from the Eagles, saw the Giants a couple times, a year. Maybe that works in their favor. Maybe that is what swayed the odds. I don't think so, but that could be it. But the Giants, I think, are starting to find their footing a little bit, having done so against a very good Chargers team. The Saints still trying to figure it out a little bit. The advantage, they are going to be in their home turf. The Saints are, and like I said, unless the Giants take that crowd out of it early, it's going to be an uphill battle for New York.
Yeah, it's an early start time too, at least locally. It's a noon start time. That's central time zone there in New Orleans. So again, they'll start at noon. I feel silly asking, Mark, but does that have any effect on anything?
No, it doesn't. None at all. I think, Kellen was with Philadelphia for a while. He was also with the Chargers for a while, which I think favors the Giants' defense. As far as playing in New Orleans, they're 0-4. Hopefully, Giants fans travel. They want a little vacation down in New Orleans. They buy some tickets to go to the game. That place sells out with Saint fans, which I don't see, but with an 0-4 team, but you never know. Yeah, you can take the crowd out by shutting them down, scoring on offense, quieting the crowd. I just see the Giants' momentum, and they're starting to feel themselves, knowing what direction they want to go. They're going in. Far supersedes what the Saints are going through. Whole new coaching staff, as Patricia says. It's very easy. I've never been 0-4, but I would think it's very easy to go into the tank with the older players down there with a new coaching staff, because that new coaching staff is coming in and he inherited some of these older players that he didn't pick. Some of these guys may be ready to check out or just playing out the string because they're not going to be there next year. All that stuff factors, believe it or not, in situations like this. So what I'm saying in a roundabout way, the team with the better momentum, most momentum, the Giants, playing a team with still trying to figure themselves out, getting to know each other. I like the Giants to win this game.
So do I, for what it's worth. Patricia, we talked about Scadaboo replacing Tracy, stepping up, being the one. Obviously, no Neighbors. So does Darius Slayton have it in him? And we all love Darius, but does he have it in him to be a true number one and sort of lead the receiving core, if you will?
I think he does. The thing that I worry about with Slayton is he's been nursing a groin injury. That has, he's played through it, but it's kind of slowed him down a little bit, I think, so far this season. Slayton can be a very, very good receiver. I mean, remember, before there was Neighbors, what did he lead? He was like the team leader in receiving yardage for 4 out of his first 5 years. So Slayton can be a guy that you can turn to. Is he Malik Neighbors? No. You cannot replace Malik Neighbors. I don't care who they bring in. I mean, unless they're dusting off Jerry Rice or Odell Beckham Jr. and bringing those guys in their prime. You don't replace a Malik Neighbors. But Slayton is a smart receiver. He's, experienced. I think if his groin is not an issue, and again, if he's on the injury report, it probably is, I think he can, help that passing game. How much? I don't know. I think they're going to probably spread it around. But the guy that I want to see more involved in, and I just, for whatever reason, the Giants don't really get them involved as much, get the tight ends more involved, especially in the middle of the field, especially down in the red zone where Malik Neighbors was was used so much. We don't see that a lot. I think, I think it was as of last week. I don't know if it's changed. It probably hasn't. The Giants use the tight end in the red zone the least amount of times of all the NFL teams. That's got to change, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I was just thinking, let's do the tight ends next, Mark. Obviously, Bellinger and Johnson have been relatively quiet, but I think we all think, especially Theo Johnson, that these are serviceable tight ends that the Giants need to get into the game.
Well, they have no choice now. You got to utilize everybody, including the tight ends up in the middle. So, yeah, I now the whole complexity of the Giants' offense, it doesn't change because Neighbors is out. You saw that in the second half of the Chargers game. They're going to move the ball. Big play capability, yes, that's taking a hit, obviously. But they can still move the ball, which I think they'll do effectively because it's an RPO system. And the Saints will probably negate the big play because the big play receiver is no longer with the Giants. But with that being said, hey, listen, it's all about winning the game. It's all about who's next. How can who's ever next in line to get the job done, you got to get it done. So we can sit here and beat the horse as many times as you want. At the end of the day, who's ever's next up, got to get it done.
Yeah, this does not, to me, and we've seen shootouts in that dome. I mean, we think about Eli in that crazy game. But that being said, I do not see a shootout here. No Neighbors, obviously. Scadaboo is going to be the running back number one. Patricia, again, this feels like to me, so I'll only speak for me, feels like a low-scoring game. The over-under is 40.5, so Vegas thinks it's going to be a low-scoring game as well.
I never did figure out how Vegas determines that. I mean, I really don't understand. I'm not a gambler, so I don't understand how odds work and how they come up with all that stuff. But look, at the end of the day, as long as the Giants have more points than the Saints, I'm happy. And I think all Giants Nation will be happy.
Yeah, Mark, your thoughts?
I'm thinking 21-10 Giants. That's simple. I mean, I'm not a gambler. I'm not a great prognosticator, but I'm pretty damn good from last week. But I think the Giants 21-10.
Yeah, it's funny because you were right on. So whatever you say today, I'm listening to you.
That's 21.
Yeah, 21-10 is a low-scoring game. Now, we saw the high-scoring game with Dallas. It won't be that kind of game, obviously. But I would expect it to be more like the Charger game, Mark. Is that fair?
Yeah, closer, yeah. Exactly like that. The Giants are going to move the ball. They're going to score enough points to win. The Saints are going to move the ball as well, even though I'm not a big Spencer Rattler fan. But they got some weapons on their team, too. And as Lawrence Taylor used to say back in the day, those other guys get paid, too. So you gotta respect them.
Yeah, Patricia, all right, let's put a bow on this. The type of game the Giants need to play, at least to me, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is probably going to be running and stopping the run. So, again, a low-scoring game. Do you think that's a recipe for success focus on the run, especially with no neighbors, and focus on stopping the run, especially with Kamara.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where it all starts. You know, if you're on offense, get the big yardage on the first down. You know, that's what I call the money down. And I think the coaches would agree. Meanwhile, if you're on defense, limit the amount of yardage on first down. So, you know, every coach will probably tell you, stop the run the ball, rush the passer. That's the formula for success. So, you know, the other thing I would add, watch the mistakes, because, you know, I'm not quite ready here to say that the Giants are good enough to overcome some mistakes. Now, they did last week, a couple of them, but you can't have them pile up. You can't keep, you know, hurting yourself. So that's something to keep an eye on. And just, you know, a big challenge is going to be, particularly on offense, if that dome gets loud, you better hope that everybody's on the same page, because they're going to have to go to a silent snap count. And that is not easy to do on offense. That's where you see a lot of false starts. I haven't looked it up. I might do that for my show, but I'd be curious to see how many false starts get called inside dome stadiums.
Yeah, and it's you brought it up, and it's a great point, and that's mistakes, Mark. We really haven't seen the rash of turnovers kill the Giants yet, despite the fact that they're only 1-3. Now the penalties haven't been good, especially in the Dallas game. But the turnovers haven't really been a huge problem as of yet.
No, that's good. I mean, you don't want to turn the ball over, because turnovers are devastating. They're momentum busters. We turn the ball over. It's discouraging. The penalties is all. That's coachable. And some of those players, the guys who make the penalties, just got to learn not to do stuff like that. But overall, I just think if the Giants go down and play solid, close to as solid as you can, they should handle the Saints pretty well.
Patricia, your thoughts, I guess, big picture as we kind of put a wrap on this?
Yeah, I mean, ride the wave of confidence. There is confidence in that locker room. You know, the first 3 weeks you kind of saw it dwindle down a little bit. You know, the music got softer and softer. The laughter died down. You know, guys were sitting at their stools just kind of looking tired, and just, you know, now there's energy. Build off of that. You know, I mean, you'd be surprised if you go into a game with energy, even if you're evenly matched against your opponent. Sometimes that's the little X factor that you need to put you over the top.
Mark, I know you said 21-10. This feels, and I know we talked about it, like a must win. The Giants were 0-3. They rallied to beat and save their season. I feel like if they lose, then lose to the Eagles, we might have another spiraling out of control situation that the Giants are going to have to save. So it would behoove them to win.
Yeah, no doubt. Once again, back to my golf analogy about getting a birdie one hole and the bogey the next. Yeah, I see it. It can work that way, but you know, you can't as a player, you can't worry about what's ahead of you. You got to worry about the here and now. As long as they're focused on the here and now and take care of business, everything else in front of you takes care of itself.
All right, so Patricia thinks they're going to win. Mark thinks they're going to win. I think they're going to win. Hopefully they will win. For Patricia and Mark, I'm Jay. This has been the New York Giants Squad Show. Hopefully, a win on Sunday. Have a great week.